Hello, my name is Angela Kennecke. Welcome to Awareness, Action, and Hope, Navigating the Opioid Fentanyl Crisis. This year, I had the privilege of hosting a national broadcast dedicated to raising awareness about the opioid crisis. During the powerful special, sponsored by Walmart, I had the honor of meeting others who are grieving the loss of loved ones to fentanyl, as well as those who have overcome difficult situations and are now helping others in their fight against addiction. That includes today's guest, Jose Rivera.
The reason why I wanted out of my home and in the gangs because my mother was extremely abusive. She was into torture tactics, that kind of thing. She was an alcoholic.
From an abusive childhood to joining a gang at just 11 years old, Jose's life could have taken a very devastating turn. In fact, most of the people he knew in his gang are no longer alive. But Jose has been able to defy the odds and has made it his life's mission to help those battling mental health issues and substance use disorder. His powerful story on this episode of Grieving Out Loud.
It started with the high school principal. He treated me as if he loved me. That was the first time a male adult, especially, imprinted, "I love you, brother. I'm going to look after you. I have your back." And the others who did it, he put them in place.
Jose, it is fantastic to see you again, even if it's just virtually here in our virtual podcast studio. We got a chance to meet when we recorded a special about fentanyl awareness and giving people some advice and some hope. And that's currently online. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes of this podcast. But it's great to see you again.
It's great to see you, and it's great to be here.
Were you surprised getting called to be part of that special?
I was a little bit. I was a part of it last year here at the WHNT, but I was totally shocked to get called back in it again. And I thought it was amazing. It was a great experience.
Yeah, it's about an hour long, close to an hour long, and it has just a lot of information in it, a lot of good advice. I shared my story along with Lauren, shared her story, and you talked a little bit about your background as well. And I just found that so fascinating. Your story is fascinating to me. Jose grew up in Brooklyn, New York, within the Lafayette Gardens housing project. The New York City Housing Authority development has faced many challenges.
Lafayette Gardens is well known, is infamous for, a lot of street stuff, drugs, gang violence. I started out in the gang, from age 11 to 14.
11. Did you feel like you had any choice at age? Did you have to join a gang? Is that just how the culture was in this area? Tell me a little bit about how that came about. 11 is so young to be a member of a gang.
Right. There were guys who started younger than that. And what it was like, basically, at that age, I had no idea, or I didn't believe I would live to see adulthood. Because so many of us is dying between the turf wars, amongst ourselves. And so I had no vision of a future per se. And then I came from an extremely abusive home. And so I didn't have no love. I didn't feel loved and didn't feel wanted, whereas I turned to the streets. The reason why I wanted out of my home and in the gangs because my mother was extremely abusive. She was into torture tactics, that kind of thing. She was an alcoholic, and so she had 4 boys, 2 of us, she really worked over, and then the other 2 is the extreme opposite. So I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel supported. I was always called fat, stupid, and, and amongst the other things, being beaten. So I wanted to learn how to fight and be able to protect myself.
So you found your sense of belonging among the gang members.
Yes, absolutely.
But what was that like? Can you explain that to me? Did they look out for you? Did they take care of you? Did you feel like they cared about you where maybe you didn't feel as if your parents did?
Right. No, friends take care of ourselves. The older leaders don't take care of us whatsoever. It's more of just wanting to belong to something. So I didn't feel like I belonged to a family. So I'm going to belong to this crew, And it was multiple gangs within the project. At the age of 11, the older guys utilize us by putting drugs on us and their money on us when they're gambling. Because when the cops have come out of nowhere and searched them, it was illegal to search minors. That's why the kids, we would have their guns, their drugs, their money, because it'd be like large circles and they're playing, shooting dice, that kind of thing. And making $20 for a whole day of carrying their stuff, that's a lot of money for an 11-year-old at that time. And it always ended the same way. Arguments start, the shootout starts, and then everyone's, spread like roaches, So it's more of the camaraderie between the same age cliques, right? So it's like, yeah, I work for this guy, we work for this guy, answer this guy, but we survive together. So it's more about that than anything.
And your activity with the gang progressed beyond the age of 11, right? What kinds of things were you doing as you got older?
Right. So there was different vices. I'm not proud of being in the gang, but I am proud that I've never sold the drugs. I took orders. I carried it. I carried their weapons, the mule, transported building to building, that kind of stuff. But as small kids, we had different vices. Like the older teenagers, especially the girls, they had a thing for jewelry and wearing emblems from cars, like the Honda Accord emblem, the H, or the Mercedes-Benz emblem. So we would break those off of cars and sell them to the teenagers. And then they would put it in their sneakers, or they would hang it on their chain, that kind of stuff, or make earrings out of them. So 11 and 12, that was kind of our vices. Stealing pit bulls from junkyards and, wrecking yards, and then selling it to the dope dealers because they liked having pit bull fights. So that kind of stuff, stealing from the stores, things like that.
So did you ever use drugs yourself when you were involved with the gang?
Never.
You didn't?
I didn't, because I progressed to the point where I actually became a leader, in my age group. So I was the boss of my own crew, and I had the biggest crew in my age group. We were 17 solid, and I had to fight for that. Every day was a fight, because you always have someone trying to outstep you, or like there's always a coup going on, if you will. And so always fighting. So I had to be on point at all times. And, if I wasn't on point, if I'm high or something, I'll get taken out. I've seen a lot of older guys get taken out that way. So I never touched alcohol, never touched the marijuana, didn't touch the cocaine like the older teenagers did. I didn't do any of that because I always looking with my eyes in the back of my head.
Interesting. But there was a turning point in all of this, obviously, because you're still here with us. Otherwise, you wouldn't be. So as you said, the life expectancy is not high for a gang member, for somebody coming from the projects. So what happened?
Well, I was sent to a high school that's far away from my projects. And that was...
Why was that? Yeah, why were you sent far away?
Well, it's interesting. It's like how it's zoned versus how you test. Because we had we called the Project Middle School. And all of my friends, all my brothers went there. I didn't go there. I went to a different school that was in a different neighborhood, another project rivalry area, because of my art. Because that's the only thing that kept me in school, was my art. I had an art teacher in elementary school who really looked out for me. I got my art put in the Brooklyn Union Gas Company. I also went to the Art Institute in Manhattan for display. Even though I kept getting suspended for fighting, but I never initiated the fighting. I just always defended, and then wouldn't stop. That's how I made my name. But I always wind up going to special programs, and that's located in schools far away. So I always had gotten into fights with other guys, some other locations, because they knew who I was and where I was from.
What kind of art were you doing when you were young?
So it just basically, the schools will always challenge you to create a portfolio, whether it be off the top of your head or they'll give you an assignment, something that looks. So one of them was the Brooklyn Union Gas Company. It was a futuristic world with flying cars and, basically Star Wars style portrait I did. And then the one in Manhattan, that was the Brooklyn Bridge. I drew a large mural of the Brooklyn Bridge.
Because of his artwork, the Pratt Institute awarded Jose a 6-month scholarship to the prestigious private school. The scholarship also helped him get into a middle school far from home and away from his fellow gang members. But it also came with a new set of challenges.
And I was suspended 4 times in 7th grade, 4 times in 8th grade. They went to kick me out for the fighting. But again, that was a rival gangs out there, and they kept trying to get me. And so, yeah, and it takes 2 to fight is how they always said.
Despite the challenges he faced in middle school, Jose's artistic talent opened another door for him, this time to the Boys and Girls High School, miles away from his housing project. It was built in the 1970s as a model education option, which is a school that offers students an alternative to their neighborhood district.
I was scared because that's another rival gang projects there. And, my projects is an infamous projects. We've caused havoc all through Brooklyn and then some. We travel and get into gang wars. So just surviving that. And so that school was revamped by my principal, who's well-renowned now, Frank Mickens. What he did was the school had violence like no other. It was drugs, robberies going on in the school, So he 360'd it. Basically put chains on the back doors so gangs can't sneak in. They had to carry metal detectors. We were checked coming in. We could not bring no weapons. And the girls could only have 3 rings on their fingers. So no excessive jewelry. Earrings can't be big and gold. No expensive leather coats. And he wanted us to come to school Monday through Wednesday with a white shirt and tie, and he had words or posters of affirmation throughout the school, dress for success, be your best, that type thing. He was helping us transform. So I didn't buy into that in the beginning. I just knew it was a matter of time if these gangs was going to try me. So I did the worst thing I could do, and I I carried my razor with me at all times. And I got into it in the hallway at school, and the guy snuck me. He was way bigger than me. So I pulled out my razor and I went to hurt him, but I got grabbed and I turned around. It was the head security guard. So I knew I was expelled. That was it for me, so I was waiting for that to happen anyway. So he took me to my principal, and I had to wait for him because the principal goes out in the street and he makes sure that the kids get home safe, get on the bus straight, and keep the gangs off the kids. So he came in and I'll never forget it. He said, "Give it to me fast. You want to live or you want to die?" And I'm like, I'm going to live. I'm dirty old from LG, And they're like, "Shut up. Don't got time for that. Do you want to live or you want to die?" It's like, "Well, I want to live." And I'm like, "Aren't you going to throw me out?" He's like, "Well, if you want to live, you want to stay in the school, that guy you almost tried to kill or whatever you try to do, he's the next captain of the football team. And you're going to be up under him because you're going to join the team, or you can just go and get out of school. You need character. You need discipline. What's it going to be?"
So instead of kicking you out, he gave you the option to join the football team.
Yes, because I had no direction. He was always aware of the kids that was coming into his school somehow. I never understood, he does his homework. So he knew what I was and where I came from.
And it turned out football was exactly what Jose needed, even though he had never played a day of an organized sport in his life.
We were poor, couldn't afford anything like that. So yeah, it just changed my life between that and dressing up because we didn't have shirt and ties. So he went on TV locally and was campaigning for support from New York City to donate shirt and ties to the school for the poor kids. And so when you came to school and you didn't have a shirt and tie on Monday through Wednesday, you get sent to the back where you got Polo, Ralph Lauren, Hugo Boss, Bill Blass, Tommy Hilfiger, white shirts, beautiful ties. I would purposely go late just to go get the shirt and ties. So I had a repertoire of white shirt and ties. A lot of us did,
But in uniform and teaching kids to dress in a way that's nice, that's reflecting, something different, right?
Yeah.
It's reflecting. That's what it does. And so you chose football, obviously, or we wouldn't be talking. And was that hard? Was it hard for you to learn to play football and you had to play with this kid that you tried to cut?
It was tough. It was tough on 2 reasons. One, I had to go back to the projects and confront the leaders saying, "Look, I'm out. I'm not playing. I'm not part of the game anymore. And I'm not down." And at this time, this was the beginning of the biggest drug war that was going on. So my age group was getting poached by different gang members, to join the cliques. So that 17 that I was allegedly in charge of, I was the leader. I turned my back on everybody. And they hated me for that, but some supported me for it. The older guys was like, "I got your back. Ain't nobody gonna mess with you. But if I catch you going backwards or trying to get down with this gang or this gang, and we finna have this war, gonna blow your head off. It's like, you don't gotta worry about that. I'm gonna do the football. It was tough because I never had to do organized gathering, running, and then just learning the plays, learning structure, learning to be a real team, a real brotherhood, and then like that guy who was my captain, he was a total jerk. He wasn't from the hood. He was from upper class living. There was a lot of hazing, and, it's just, you deal with it. It's not that bad compared to the street hazing, you see?
Hmm. And so you were how old at this time?
14 when I had to do that transition.
Wow. Are you passionate about keeping kids safe and informed? Emily's Hope is proud to introduce our K-5 substance use prevention curriculum, designed to educate young minds about the dangers of substance use. This engaging program lays the foundation for a healthy future. Visit emilyshopeedu.org to learn more and help bring this vital resource to your local schools. Encourage your school administrators and counselors to explore our curriculum today. It's part of our mission. Together, we can make a difference. And if he would have kicked you out, we wouldn't be talking, right?
Nah,
Yeah.
because that war started a couple of months later. I'd say 7 out of that 17 of my friends, they died in that war. And as the years went on,
Oh my God.
there's only 3 of us left today.
Wow.
One's in prison doing life. The other one don't know where he is. And then there's me.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, you really did beat the odds. I mean, it's unbelievable. Not only did Jose beat the odds, but on the football field, he excelled. Despite having never played a team sport before, he quickly became a key player and was named captain his senior year.
And it was amazing. It was amazing. A lot of friends, being able to travel all throughout the city and compete against other schools that I've never heard of. There was boroughs I've never been to, and I got to be there and compete there.
Despite leading his team, Jose still didn't feel support from home. His mother never attended any of his games. However, his teammates and school had his back, and that support, Jose says, ended up changing his life.
The school did so much extra. I had perfect attendance, one, because I was an athlete, but secondly, because if I didn't go to school, I don't eat. My mother only would feed the younger one. My older brother was always into still in the streets, so he was never home. And so she made it clear, feed yourself. My principal, because of after school programs, he would have boxes of heroes, sandwiches. And we're talking 100 of them. And a lot of us would take 3, 4, and 5, And so we'll eat them between practice, eat them for dinner, take them home. That's how I fed myself. In the summer, our summer youth employment programs, and that kept me out of the house. And one of those years, I earned the scholarship. What they do is each year they pick 1,000 employees and they narrow it down with interviews to just 20. And 10 get a $1,000 scholarship, the other 10 get 100. And so I made the $100 scholarship and got to be with the first Black mayor of New York City, Mayor Dinkins. So that was another accomplishment. Everything just went uphill for me.
As one of the nation's strongest financial organizations, First Premier Bank and Premier Bank Card have the strength to do good. We support nearly 700 organizations and nonprofits. Our employees give more than 30,000 volunteer hours annually. And we are continually seeking ways to make South Dakota an even better place to live. It's the Premier way. First Premier Bank and Premier Bank Card.
Jose was defying the odds, but it wasn't without challenges. That included trying to get into college.
I failed my SAT. When I took it, it was the day after I found out my father died. And so I was in a whole nother world when I took the SAT. And I just wasn't there. I don't even remember taking the test, really. And I wasn't willing to take it again. I went to a junior college that had football, to get your grades up and then transfer, that kind of thing. Talking with a lot of other athletes. So it was peer stuff. My peers would say, hey, I'm going to this school. We learned this, if you don't got the SAT score, you go to a JUCO, get your grades up, and you can transfer. You play for the JUCO and, you can earn a scholarship. So that's what I did, and I did financial aid, Pell Grants, loans, and then there was something else called TAP for New York City kids. And I'll never forget it. When I was in college, my senior year, I made line captain in college. I saw Rudolph Giuliani. He was nearby visiting a priest who got attacked on the subway. And so he was going to cut our college tuitions in the city. So when he was done interviewing with them, he was taking questions from the press. So I jumped in and said, "Excuse me, sir, is it true that you're going to cut TAP and cause the athletes not to play ball anymore and have to work?" And they was like, "Well, young man, you got to get a job like everybody else." I was like, "What about us poor inner city kids who don't even got cars to get to anywhere? And we upstate New York." And he's like, "Well, I'll figure it out. Bye." And it took off. And
Wow.
it was like all the microphones came to me like, boom, and I just confronted that joker. And then, afterwards, the press was like, "I've never seen anyone shut him up and make him run like that before, young man. What they turn that?" And they put it on the news and everything.
And you didn't become a journalist. I'm shocked. I'm shocked you didn't end up becoming a journalist. Instead, you went on, you got your master's degree, and now you're a counselor. You work drug, alcohol counseling, childhood trauma.
Mhm.
How did you end up in that field?
So I got to say it was the internship. The internship was for the outpatient drug therapy. And so I took the internship, and within 3 weeks, the director gave me my own class. The clients really connected to me, even as an intern, because of my history, how I talked to them and how I understood them and how I could relate to them. And I loved it. And the looks in their eyes. And there were times where clients would say, "Man, you're just a student and you're better than the therapist that used to teach this class." And I'm just like, don't let that go to your head, Jose. Don't let that go to your head.
How did it help you understand maybe what was going on with your mother? What you learned as you became a counselor, what you learned about substance use disorder. Did you have a better understanding of what had happened to you as a child because of your mother's illnesses?
It was more of, along with spirituality, my understanding is that my mother couldn't help herself. It was the spirit that drove her. She did the best she could with what she had. She had her own demons, so I had to forgive her for that.
Were you able to forgive your mom?
Absolutely. I forgave her for that as a means to find peace within myself, because I was an angry child, which is why I was on the streets like that, always at risk, sometimes out till 4 or 5 in the morning on the benches, with my friends. A lot of us had these backgrounds. I had a friend whose mom and dad would get high on crack and rape him. I had another friend whose mom was a prostitute. I had another friend whose parents were either just straight addicts, murderers, you name it. We were all from all walks of life, but I was always the kid that they talked to. So it was like my calling.
Yeah. And is your mother still alive?
She's still alive. I don't have much communication with her, but I have no ill will towards her. It's just that she's still who she is, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
My grandma has always said it's always okay to love your family from a distance. Just don't have no anger.
Right. Sometimes that's the healthiest thing to do, right? But you also specialize now in children and trauma. And how is childhood trauma, related to substance use disorder?
Well, because when people carry that, they go back and they're triggered by these events. The emotional pain can be so enduring and so overwhelming that they want to run from it. They want to escape, that pain for that moment. Some start out with mutilating. And I feel that substance abuse is a type of self-mutilating. It's because you're poisoning self. You're poisoning it, and they work to take themselves out of that moment of, I'm triggered. I'm nothing. I'm a piece of nothing. I was treated like nothing. I'm not loved. I came up with kids and we were all part of trauma, multiple forms of traumas. So I understood that. I really understood it and why they're working to escape their pain. But escaping your pain, you can never escape it. All you're doing is temporarily masking it, and then it comes back. And then by masking it, people put themselves in worse situations, which is one more trauma to mask from.
It's a never-ending cycle then,
Right.
right? Yeah, because you just experience more trauma, potentially more abuse when you're high, and there's all kinds of horrible things that can happen, especially to women, right?
Yes.
But to everybody. And yeah, it's just a continuous cycle that is that shame and the need to escape the shame and the pain, right? So what have you found is effective? Because you are a anomaly. I mean, you're an exception to the rule where you had that trauma, but you didn't go in that direction. You talked about all your peers who died and the ones who ended up in prison or just disappeared, right? So what do you think it was in you? I wonder if there's something. I wish we could bottle that. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people do endure traumas and they don't choose to use a substance or become a criminal or whatever it is.
Right.
What do you think it was?
For one, again, it started with the high school principal. He treated me as if he loved me. That was the first time a male adult, especially, imprinted, I love you, brother. I'm going to look after you. I have your back. And the others who did it, he put them in place. When football was over, he talked to the track and field coach and got me on that team. So he did everything.
Oh.
I stayed busy year round to stay out those projects, stay out of my home.
So it's proof that just one caring adult can really make an impact,
Right.
which sometimes I don't know that we believe that it just takes one caring adult sometimes.
Right. So I practically, because they showed me that they care about me, I started caring about myself. And then I developed the want and desire to live because I never had that. And then as awesome things kept happening, it was like it felt good. And so I wanted to feed that and stay in that moment, And so a lot of sacrifices is made. Like, there's times when someone would try me or something like that, and that old me would have come out and fight, and I would have to humble down. Football taught that discipline. So a lot of things was put in my place in front of me, and I accepted it because I wanted to survive. I wanted to care about myself. I wanted to be different from everybody else.
And then you cared about others because your whole profession is really about caring about others
Right.
now.
And I learned that, through football, especially becoming a captain. I always have to look after the teammates, always teaching stuff. We had lower classmen when they come in, and guiding them. We going into college, same thing. Became the line captain because I had to teach the other guy. And it was a family. And that was the first time I felt needed, wanted, loved, appreciated. And I played a role. And nothing feels better than that. And I want to help people understand you can do that too if you make the right decisions, but you got to want to make that decision. They may not have people in front of them saying, here, let me guide you. So I want to be that person to open that door and track resources for them. That's what I always work to do.
Today, Jose is a licensed professional counselor at a private group practice where he helps people of all ages, from young children to the elderly.
The focus is mainly trauma therapy, trauma work. And then for the little ones, is a lot of just cognitive behavior therapy, helping them adjust to their circumstances.
Do you prefer to work with children? Is that your favorite thing to do?
Well, I can't say that. I like a balance. So all through my career, especially the first 10 years, all my colleagues, they had a thing for I'm only doing one. Whereas I was always that guy, I need a balance because I'll get burnt out if I'm just seeing a bunch of kids. So I always had the mixture, adults and kids. So I was the only one in the county mental health center who worked with adults and children, substance abuse and mental health. And I had, also taught groups, substance abuse classes, that kind of thing, weekend programs for the juvenile detention program, that kind of stuff. So I had a variety, teenagers, adults, children. And so that's how I stay balanced.
So for kids who are headed down a difficult road, as you were at one point, how do you think we turn that around? You've worked with these kids, you've worked in the juvenile detention centers. If they're already starting to use, maybe, how do we turn that around?
Well, a lot of it has to do with each individual's argument or situation or dilemma. And the teenagers is usually marijuana use. And then they come from broken homes where the parents are selling drugs. I've had a lot of clients who parents would say they ADHD, but take the medicine and sell it. And the kids will tell me that, that kind of stuff. So they come from homes where, just like I was, their mother didn't care about them, but they got to have a will, and I had to learn fast. You can't help everybody. I've had teenagers die on my watch, drug overdose, relapse, DUI, wrecks that took their lives, getting back in the gangs, getting shot. In 18 years, it'll teach you a whole lot. That if you could just help just one, you've done your job. So I have no expectation, just try to help the best way I can, guide the best way I can, help support the kids the best way I could. Half the time that means working with the parent. Because I've had teenagers many times say, if you just get her under control, I'll be fine.
Oh, sure. Because it is a family issue. It's everybody. And nobody knows that better than you with your background. So, yeah. And I think you're right. Like, you can't save everybody, even if you're a good counselor, even with your own personal experiences and all this wisdom that you have to impart upon kids, you can't save everybody.
Right.
And I think that could be very disheartening sometimes.
Right. One some of the worst cases that have to do, it's going to be the sexual assault victims, and it's going to be the girls who had to learn that the boy, whether it be their brother or their uncle or the father who did it, the stepfather, that the mother and other relatives will support that male over her. And so that feeling of not feeling loved, supported, or protected, it's so tough trying to get them to see, hey, you can love yourself.
And that they're valuable,
Yes.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah. Those tend to be the toughest ones. And for the past 5.5 years, it was focused exclusively on that. I was working with trauma children at the National Children's Advocacy Center here in Huntsville, Alabama. And it was just a heartbreak.
Yeah, I bet it was. Because I'm sure you helped some, but as you said, everybody probably not. And sometimes do you look at your life and think, I can't believe it turned out this way, considering where you came from and everything that you went through?
I did, but it took other people like you asking that. And then I'd be like, yeah, because I try to stay in the present, the here and now. And that's what I teach all of my clients. Stay out of the future, stay out of the past, because it's all anxiety and some depression. And so the goal is just to be present and live for today. And tomorrow will work itself out because we're taking care of ourselves today. But when I'm asked that, and then I'll find myself reflecting, but I try to stay out of that. When I used to do that, I would start remembering old friends that's not here, and especially the ones that died when I was still a teenager. Because I used to blame myself for that. I would always say, if I was there, that would not have happened. I had one best friend kill another best friend because the one best friend assaulted him first. But if I was there, that would have never happened. Everyone listened to me. And so I always used to blame myself for that,
So you have a lot of grief and guilt that you carried with you.
I carried it, and then I made peace with it, and it took being in this field, especially those first 10 years, working with a versatile clientele my first 10 years. So I had to practice what I preached.
Yeah.
And so sometimes talking to them, I was talking to me too.
I bet.
I had to, give up the anger, forgive my mother, forgive old enemies from my early childhood, because those older guys, it was rough, when they get drunk or high, they had a thing for beating up on the little kids. And so I was always big for my age. And a couple of times they really laid it on me for fun, like they would have punching matches. And one time I couldn't walk for hours, All my friends were little guys, I was 13 when that happened. These guys were like 35-year-old diesel dope lords and stuff like that, just forgiving them even.
It is amazing. It's amazing that you survived. It's amazing what you took and made out of your life, because so much of this had to be self-initiated. I mean, I know you had that support and that was huge from the principal, but the rest of it, that was a spark that was lit inside of you, and you did the rest of it yourself, which is amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
I also, when I was in college, I got to play for a legendary football coach, Lou Saban, which was O.J. Simpson's coach when it was with the Bills, when they won the championship. I did 2 years with him. So that's amazing, so it's been great. I admit that the best decision I ever made was to reinvent myself and love myself, learn to love myself. I had to learn that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jose. I so appreciate this conversation, and it's been wonderful getting to know you better.
Same here. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
And thank you for listening to this episode of Grieving Out Loud. If you found it helpful, please take a moment to rate and review, as well as share it with friends and family. You can find more episodes, read my blog, and discover the latest news headlines surrounding the fentanyl crisis and substance use disorder on our website, emilyshope.charity. Tune in again next week as I sit down with a grieving mother who has made it her mission to raise awareness about the dangers of marijuana to the developing brain.
He said, "You probably don't remember, but you told me many years ago that marijuana would hurt my brain. And it's ruined my mind and my life. And I am so sorry, Mom. I love you."
That's an eye-opening conversation you won't want to miss next week on Grieving Out Loud. Until then, wishing you faith, hope, and courage. This podcast is produced by Casey Wonnenberg King and Marley Miller. Are you ready to protect the next generation from the dangers of substance use? Emily's Hope has created a comprehensive K-12 substance use prevention curriculum designed to educate, empower, and equip students with the tools they need to make healthy choices. Our age-appropriate lessons start in kindergarten and build through high school, using science, real stories, and interactive learning to help kids understand their bodies, brains, and risk of drug use. We're already reaching thousands of students across multiple states, and we're just getting started. Visit emilyshopeedu.org to learn more and share our curriculum with your school administrators and counselors. At Emily's Hope, we believe prevention begins with education. Let's work together to keep our kids safe.